I hadn't heard you play those sounds, and that's specific to that on that particular record. There's, you play that, and that's the thing that first caught my ear, because I didn't hear a lot of people doing that in a rock context.
Right. Yeah. It was. I don't think even Larry Carlton was doing it with the Crusaders.
No.
So they were playing much more kind of one-chord bluesy things, So it was a very, early appearance of that kind of approach in fusion music,
What do you think about that term, fusion music?
Well, I've never liked it either.
Yeah.
But it does, Miles Davis didn't like the word jazz.
That's true.
But it kind of describes a genre in a way that people identify. What else would you call it?
I know.
Rock jazz, jazz rock.
Jazz rock.
Jazz rock fusion.
What do you think of the sophistication of audiences back in the 70s and 80s? Exactly.
I'm sorry.
No, but the sophistication that people used to have back in the 70s and 80s in comparison to nowadays, as far as harmonic sophistication the listeners had.
Honestly,
can you talk about that?
It's kind of an interesting question, because I don't know why that door opened. I don't know why that, sonic window opened to where fusion, quote, that mixture of jazz and rock actually became popular in some way. Like it's a phenomenon to me. Now, there weren't a lot of bands that were popular.
No.
There were just a few, really. But, Weather Report they were a big act,
Huge.
And particularly internationally. And Miles Davis, the same thing. Those guys could go overseas and play to anywhere from, 5 to 15,000 people on their own, That doesn't happen, I don't think, to anybody anymore.
No.
So why that happened, I'm not sure. But there was just a nice little evolution, like blues kind of came back into some kind of favor, and then rock players started incorporating not only blues, but they were listening to Miles Davis and John Coltrane, Grateful Dead, even bands like that. They were trying to do what Coltrane and Miles Davis and others were already doing, way better than those guys ever would. But they were trying, And I don't know, maybe that just kind of allowed people to kind of get it. And Miles Davis came on very strong with the mixture of rock and jazz, and he was enough of a legend, I don't know. It's interesting that happened. But it happened, and it eventually sort of,
Why, though? Why do you think?
I think for reasons that are so broad, you could call it the cell phone, might have just killed virtually everything culturally.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. This is actually Rick Beato 2. I've had it since the beginning of my main channel, and many of you are not subscribed. As a matter of fact, 87% of the people that watch this channel regularly are not subscribed. So I encourage you to hit the subscribe button on this channel and on my main channel. This will help me get even more of my dream guests and help continue to grow both channels. Thank you.
I would get very dramatic about answering a question like that, because it's painful to me to see what we're seeing. What's happened to music is just, it's been devastated, in every way, financially, quality. It's just been smashed to bits, like it's very hard to be an artist, a true artist in this world today. And, everybody's thinking much more about how to sell their product because nobody's paying for it anymore. So how do you monetize it?
Right.
Than making actually great music. It's very hard,
Can you talk about improvisation and the importance of that in music?
Well, to me it's a way of life, and to many others, it's personal expression, So it's, it's desiring to say something, It's a need to express oneself. That's what improvisation is, right? And that improvisation can be done in absolutely any medium. jazz has just been this fantastic, evolution of improvisation through music. So, it's a spiritual thing, Actually, improvisation it's a spiritual thing, even though I'm not hearing much spirituality in much improvisation these days. Like technique has become the art, as opposed to, like actually have, kind of feeling the need to say something. So this mixture, like, nope, people don't know about the blues. Nobody knows about the blues anymore. And in America, that's where the spiritual thread, can be traced back to. It goes back to the church and things, and nature and things like that. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have that connection, I don't know, man. I don't think it's it's almost impossible for a Westerner to do anything with any kind of heart if he doesn't have a connection to that, where music is concerned, I feel. Even Gil Evans. So, no more sophisticated kind of, iconoclastic, big band arranger and everything. A friend of mine told me they were walking through an airport and Gil Evans was sitting waiting for a plane with a boombox listening to Muddy Waters cranked up. Now that, is what I'm talking about. It's like, you can be the most sophisticated person in the world, but if you don't have that connection to the blues, to me, there's big time something going to be missing in your playing. And it's that spiritual element.
Also, the ability to make every live performance different. Improvisation is critical in that.
Yeah, although I can go to a show where people are improvising and every song sounds the same to me.
Well, at least there's the chance of it being different every time.
I don't know. It's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, as far as I'm concerned. It's more like the element of melody, and soulfulness and expression. I mean, you can play things, backwards, forwards, upside down, but it still sounds the same if you don't have that, personal expression in there.